Yeah, I mean, this example that we're talking about with Solomon, Solomon did all these things. Solomon chased after money, chased after knowledge. He went through all this, and he's telling us and warning us about this, of how there are more important things out there than these things. And this is an example of learning from other people's mistakes. I mean, and there's this example, and there's people all around us there's people all around me that I know would say the exact same thing, that have their experiences where they've wasted days. They're warning you. Solomon here is warning us that there are more important things out there than these things, and it's something that we need to listen to.
Absolutely. All right, and then I want to read Ecclesiastes 2:12 through 17. It's a long one. I'll read it, and then I'll give Brandon the next one. And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king? Even that which hath been already done. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly as far as light excelleth darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. Then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me, and why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart, that this also is vanity. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever. Seeing that which now is the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man? As the fool. Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Solomon said, what's even the point in being wise? Being wise, wisdom is better than foolishness, as light is better than darkness. But you know what happens to foolish people? They die. Bad things happen to them, just like they happen to the fool. So, what's the point? What is the point? And then he said, therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Even the virtues of life, honesty, trustworthiness, faithfulness, kindness, love, wisdom, all of these things, you can have all those things, and you can live your life that way. And I'll tell you something, it's not going to satisfy you. Those things alone will not satisfy you. Even the virtues of life, even walking wisely, will not satisfy you. Because we need something more. We are longing after something more. We are looking for something more when it comes to satisfaction. When it comes to our soul being satisfied, we are looking for something more than virtue. We're looking for more than something like work. We're looking for more than money or wisdom or friends or power. We're looking for something more. God instilled in us the desire for something more, something that things on this earth cannot and will not fulfill. And I want to talk about what that is. And we can read the beginning of it in John 4 and verse 14. Brandon, do you want to read John 4 and verse 14?
But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life.
So the answer that's obvious is that Christ will satisfy us. God will satisfy us in a way that nothing else can and nothing else ever would. He's talking here to the woman at the well, and he says, he asks her, if she's there to, get a drink. And, she says, yeah, and everything. And he talks to her for a little bit, and he says, if you drink of this water, you're going to be thirsty again. He says, but I can give you water that if you drink of, you're never going to be thirsty again. It's a paraphrase, by the way. But that the point is that he can then truly satisfy us. We can eat again. I said this already, but we can eat and be hungry again. We can drink, we'll be thirsty again. But with Christ, he can give us something that will truly satisfy us. No, he's not going to actually give us water that quenches our thirst forever. At least not here physically. He's not going to do that. He's speaking spiritually. Spiritually, Christ can fulfill us. He can give us what we're looking for. He can give us that thing that we are missing. And he continues and talks about that. Well, Christ doesn't, but he does. But we're going to read in Psalms 107 and verse 9. Caleb, will you read Psalms 107 and verse 9?
Yeah, let me pull that up. It says, for he satisfieth the longing soul, and filleth the hungry soul with goodness.
God is a God who created us with certain desires, and He gave us opportunities and avenues to fulfill those desires. When we're hungry, we eat. When we're tired, we can sleep. When we're thirsty, we can drink. And He also gave us an avenue to satisfy our soul, and that is Him. We are incomplete if we are outside of God. If we don't have God in our life, we can search high and low. We can accumulate everything. We can have all the pleasures that life has to offer, and we'll never be complete. You know, you can find a person who makes you feel like you found your other half, and that's a wonderful thing. I feel like Emma is such a compliment to me, because she's very strong in areas that I am not strong in, and I'm strong in areas that I feel like she's maybe not as strong in. And I think we make a great team, and I love being married to her. But in truth, if I was just married to her and we didn't have God, I would still be incomplete without God. And our marriage would be worse for it. And the truth is if she was married to me and she didn't have God, she would still be incomplete without God. Because I am not enough, and money is not enough. There's nothing that is enough to fulfill you. Let's talk about 1 Timothy 6, 17 through 19. 1 Timothy 6, 17 through 19. Charge them that are rich in this world that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God who giveth us richly all things to enjoy. That they do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate, laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life. And then there's one last one that I want to read in Psalms 145 and verse 16.
That passage you just read, was it 1 Timothy you said?
Yeah.
There's a lot of weight to that, you know. God blesses you with things so that you can use them to His betterment, for His people. What are you doing if you use it all for yourself? You know, you're taking what God gave you for a specific reason and turning it against Him to use it for yourself, and self-serving attitude. That's, you know, when you look at it that way, it suddenly is really weighty and kind of heavy, you know, on you, that, hey, am I using the stuff that He gave me to serve Him, or am I using the stuff that He gave me to serve me? Is it all about me, you know?
Brendan, do you want to read Psalms 145 and 16? That kind of wraps up this idea that we're talking about here to a certain degree.
145 what?
145 and verse 16.
Thou openest thine hand and satisfieth the desire of every living thing.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay. So my whole point in this study is that work is not wrong, money is not wrong, being married, love, knowledge, wisdom,
power.
Every one of these things is something that Satan has tried to trick us into thinking this will satisfy me to one extent or another, if I have enough of it, if I can just get enough of it. And Solomon went through and he experienced it, and he said it's all of it's worthless. And I think that these things are worthless if we don't have God. And I think that if we have God, if we can honor God, if we can put God as the foundation of our life, you know, truly make Him the basis of which we do everything. You know, you can be the wisest man on earth and know that you're the wisest man on earth and not be proud about that, but recognize that as a fact. You know, or you could be the most beautiful woman on earth and recognize the fact that you are the most beautiful woman on earth at the time, and glorify God for that, and that be to God's glory, and enjoy that. You can enjoy that, all of those things. You know, you could be the richest man on earth and not be proud about it, not be greedy about it, and honor God through that, and recognize that, and it can be a good thing if God is the basis for what you're doing. If God is the basis for what you're doing, you can truly enjoy the things that He has put here to satisfy us.
I think that's actually really interesting, because while you're saying that, I was thinking about David and his son Solomon, who were, at certain times in their lives kind of polar opposites. Because David was like one of the most powerful people in the world at a certain time. Super rich, super wealthy, super powerful. And he used it just to God's glory. And then Solomon had that same position at some point in his life. And for a while he did use it the way his father did. And then for a while he used it just to serve himself and to be selfish and greedy and all those different things. But that's kind of interesting, just that I was just thinking about how they were at some points in their life polar opposites, that they gave us both the example of that it can be done the right way with everything in the world, and it can be done the wrong way with everything in the world, and the benefits and pros and cons of both of those.
Yeah, and I've been reading a lot of C.S. Lewis recently, and I highly recommend so many of his books. He's not Church of Christ. He doesn't hold all the same views as I do, and I think at times he may be a little off or speculating, which is, that's fine to speculate, I suppose. But he talks about how and I started studying the book of Ecclesiastes kind of with C.S. Lewis in the back of my mind, thinking about it, and he makes a lot of points saying things like, it's only through God that we can truly enjoy things like love, or that we can truly enjoy anything. If we are in God and He is 100%, if we have submitted ourselves to Him and He is in control, that's when we can truly begin to enjoy the things of this life, and every good thing. I think that's really, really true, especially when you talk about big boy talk here. You talk about physical relationships, right? People out in the world, they tell you if you go to college, live it up, have as many partners as you want and enjoy it, because that, if you enjoy that time, and if you have a lot of variety, that's where you'll really be able to find something that satisfies you. And that's not true. You'll find that to be empty. You will find that to be destructive. You will find that to hurt you. And then you look at the polar opposite of that. You look at physical relationship inside of marriage, and there is beauty in that, and there is glory to God in that. And if you can enjoy that relationship with your wife in God, then you are going to have a relationship and an experience that is truly joyful and is truly glorifying to God and is truly fulfilling. You cannot find that fulfillment outside of marriage. You cannot find that fulfillment outside of God. And I think that's true in every aspect of life, even in small stuff. Your food can taste better, I feel like, if you are glorifying God for the food that you have been given, that you are thankful for. Say, this food is a gift from God, and I can enjoy it more fully being submitted to God and understanding that it's from Him and that it's to His glory.
Colossians 3:2, set your affection on things above, not on the things of this earth. And I don't necessarily think this is saying to just ignore everything on this earth, but whenever we have our mindset and our focus, our thoughts on God, on Jesus, whenever we realize that the things of this world are from God, the things of this world, their priority in our lives and how we view those things sort of start to fall in order whenever we have our mindset focused on God, because He's the most important thing, ever. And whenever our focus is there, like you've been talking about, your marriage will start to fall into place, because it's based on what it needs to be based on. And that being God and on Jesus and the things that are above, rather than solely putting our focus on the things of this earth like we've talked about.
And I think there's an interesting example of that from, in our brotherhood, there's we have evangelists that have done a lot of work and set up churches in other countries and stuff. And one thing they always talk about with our church in Belize, or our churches in Belize, is that the people there, they at first didn't have anything. They were looking for something. They hardly had a place to live, food to eat. But when they found God, when the church came in and they found their place in God and they found their place in the church, they're just so happy. They're just happy people. They're content at all times, not hardly having one pair of clothes to wear. They're content with just scraping by on food to eat. They're content and happy people because they found the thing that they needed and sought after in their lives. And I think that's interesting because in America, it's really easy for us to have a lot of different things that dilute that. We feel less needy for something when we have everything so readily available to us. So we have a bit of a different perspective on that. If you have had that experience, you might have a bit of different perspective than some people in this world, where you're not needing for something, but you are needing for something, and you may not know it. Those things can't be filled by the things of this world, but that happiness, that real, pure joy that you can get, that is eternal and important, it doesn't come from things, and we have examples of that from the people that we know in our church and stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting aspect of that.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that we're never really going to be completely, fully satisfied on this earth. Eventually, because this earth is not our home. People have been trying to make earth into heaven for a long time. They've been trying to transform it into utopia, and they will always be unsuccessful, because this place is eventually going to pass away, and we're looking towards and for a better home. The most satisfied you can be on this earth is to be in complete subjection to God's authority and His will, and fully realizing the gifts He has given us and the love He has towards us. When you're in that state, and if you can work on that state and think about that, you'll be happier. You'll be more you'll be satisfied until we can get to that that far country.
When you said that, can I just point out one more thing that you might apply to some people we haven't really talked about yet? But one thing for some people, some people are really, really into the idea of making their country like a perfect country, really involved with politics and stuff. And, as we've said a lot of times, that's not wrong. There's plenty of right ways to do that, but that won't satisfy. You can never make your country a perfect country. It will never be.
You can't fix America. I mean, America. Right. I love America. It's a great country. There's a lot of freedom here. There's a lot of good things that happen here. But it's not ever going to be perfect. Yeah. There's always going to be a lot of problems.
It may not be money or entertainment or whatever. It may be.
Might be an extreme patriot.
Yeah, patriotism may be your hang up, and if that is, that's okay. But don't let that be all you are as a patriot. Be a Christian first.
So in Ecclesiastes 9 and 9, I'm going to read two more verses out of Ecclesiastes, and then we're going to kind of start wrapping up. But Ecclesiastes 9 and 9 says, actually, you know what? Let's go back to 9 and 7. It says, "Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of thy life of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun, all the days of thy vanity. For that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest." So he says, look, you're going to die one day. You're going to die one day. So live life with the mindset that you enjoy the food that God has given you, that you enjoy the drink that God has given you, that you enjoy the husband or wife that God has given you for all the days that you live on this earth, and understand that everything on this earth, it's important what we do. It is important that we glorify God while we are on this earth. That is important. But the truth is that the kindness that you do is one day going to be forgotten, except by God. God's going to remember, which is the only important one, but people here, they're not going to remember it. Eventually, they're all going to die. The things that you build, they're eventually going to pass away. The knowledge that you discover, it's going to be forgotten. Understand that, and realize that, but also take joy in the fact that you can do all these things, that God has given you all these things, and if you are in Him and if you are following Him, you can be satisfied in doing those things if they're to His glory. And he ends Ecclesiastes with this verse, Ecclesiastes 12:13. So it says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." I think that's a really, pretty accurate way to sum up this whole thing. We've been talking about how. Do you have something, Caleb?
I do have one verse, but go ahead and finish your thought.
You go ahead.
Okay. I've got Philippians 4, verses 11 through 13. Paul to the Philippians here says, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed, both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me." So I think he kind of gives us, the example of both there. He's known good times, he's known bad times, he's known suffering, he's known not having anything, he's known having plenty, and because to give context, at the beginning of his life, he was a Pharisee. They were wealthy people, they were leaders of their society, and then he was outcast. He was put in prison, people stoned him. He had nothing at all. He hungered. He was shipwrecked. He knew the highs and the lows of his society, and Paul knew how to be content, not because of anything of this world, but because he was focused on God, and that was all he was focused on. That was what he cared about. Was that he cared about God, he cared about people, he cared about serving, and he didn't care about attaining things of this world. Paul himself, he wasn't married. He wasn't focused on a life here on this earth, and he wasn't focused on being wealthy or in power, anything like that. He was just focused on who all he could spread the message to and who all he could bring to Christ, and that led him to true contentment. So I think we have a really good example of that in Paul in Philippians.
Well, and I think that Paul was, we could talk for another probably 30 minutes about this, but I think Paul was a good example of that. He was a great example of somebody who had the passion and the desire and the will to spread the gospel almost to the exclusiveness of his life. That's almost all he did.
Yeah.
That's not going to be for everybody. Not
Right.
everybody's going to do that.
Right.
Do it where you can. But I think what we can learn from Solomon in Ecclesiastes is whatever occupation you find, whatever situation you find yourself in during life, enjoy it. Enjoy the blessings and the good things that God has given us, but understand that it's fleeting, and that without God at the basis of it, it's worthless. Paul could have been an amazing preacher, but without God at the basis, it didn't matter.
Right.
And I think that we've been talking a lot about how we can only find satisfaction through Christ. We can only find satisfaction through God. And I think that's the short and long of it, is that through him, he made everything. He made all things, and he set in motion the way we can be satisfied and the way we can be fulfilled.
And he gave us a promise
and he
of
gave
something
us
to look
promises
for.
about it. And if we try to go outside his will, we're going to find disappointment. And Satan is going to do everything in his power to make us try to fit a square peg in a round hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make us find a way to go about satisfaction that is not going to satisfy us. And I think Satan's ultimate pleasure is to have us commit sin by seeking to satisfy ourselves with the pursuit of money or power or whatever it is. We seek to pursue that, and then we take no pleasure in it. So it's a double-edged sword of he takes us and brings us into sin, and we get no satisfaction from it. We thought we would, but we don't. We don't even get the pleasure of being satisfied with the sin, because without God, we're not going to be satisfied. So that's the thoughts that I've had on Ecclesiastes.
I don't really have anything else. Brandon, do you have any thoughts in closing? All right. Well, I think we've had a pretty good run of it. Talked about a good couple things here in these two-part little series on contentment and how the things of the world can't satisfy. We're going to go ahead and wrap up here, and hopefully we can have Isaac back with us next time. But without further ado, I'm Caleb.
I'm Brandon.
And I'm Ryan. Thank you so much for listening to the King's Advocate podcast.